Welcome to the 100X Life Podcast, where we activate people who desire to live the words of Jesus and experience the abundant life he promises. I'm your host, Rob Dayton, and I hope this podcast inspires you to put in the work of following Jesus.
Now the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, to bind up the brokenhearted and set the captives free.
Hey again, 100X Lifers out there in preparation for the 62-day challenge, or maybe you're just picking up 100X Life and you want some encouragement from the podcast. Either way, I'm so glad you're here. Really excited to kind of get into today what we want to talk about, and that is how do you learn? Like, what does it look like to learn to not give up? What is that process? Because we're going on this challenge, and the challenge is hard. It's hard. 2 45-minute workouts a day, one outside. Are you kidding me? And then the restrictions, no alcohol, no added sugar in it itself is a really challenging thing to pull off. It takes a lot of work and preparation, as we talked about in one of our more recent podcasts. But yeah, you have to get ready for it. And then you're going to, schedule all the tips we gave you in a previous podcast about how do you prepare and calendar and make sure there's room and time on your calendar for the challenge. That's all critical. But what everyone experiences when they are going through the challenge is the desire to give up. What is that about? How do we leverage that moment? I almost slipped and called it an opportunity, because that's what I think it is when we're almost to the part where we're ready to give up. That's the moment for the most growth. That's the moment for the most mind transformation. So let's get into it. And, just to talk a little bit about the gym and the gym experience, I was on the bike earlier today, and I was doing a spin class, and, it was a little over the top. The instructor had us doing some hills and then backing off to doing some downhills at a fast pace. And then toward the end of that set, asked us to do a higher weight or a higher resistance on the bike with a much faster clip, and that's more repetitions. And my body just started screaming. It was like, no. And then the instructor says, 45 more seconds. And I'm just like, no, there's no way. And then I had to, that's my body speaking. And then I had to interject. My conscious mind said, we are not quitting. We are not. You can do this 45, and you can do 45 seconds. So then I was like, okay, 15 seconds gone. I did 15 seconds and I celebrated it and I kept going. And I did those 45 seconds. And what's remarkable to me is that, was it really that tough? I don't know. No. Am I like on the couch right now because I've got to recover from spinning? No. As a matter of fact, that 45 seconds, once it's in the rearview mirror, was not so bad at all. And it felt so good to overcome my body when it wanted to stop. This is the key to learning not to give up. You need to understand that there's at least, you're a triune being, your body, mind or soul and spirit, and you're a triune being. Your body is clearly here on planet Earth. Jesus says your spirit is seated in heavenly places in Christ. That's Ephesians 2:6. I love that reference because present tense. And then your mind is somewhere in between. It has the capability of hearing from heavenly voices and earthly voices. And so because you're three parts and one person, much like the Trinity, you can think about it. Your strategy is to think about those three people and who is talking. Oh my gosh, ask that question. Who is talking right now? Now, clearly, the body is the one that complains the most. Out of the three, the body complains. Says, no, I don't want to do this, or I want to do this, or I want that thing, or I want to eat that thing, or I cannot live without it. It's so funny when we say, I'm starving, which is completely untrue. You have no idea probably what starving looks like, but you're saying I'm starving just because it's been 4 hours since your last meal. Yeah, so the body is the thing that overstates, screams, complains, and wants us to take action to make it feel better. That's what the body wants. You will take action, mind, and you will listen to me and you will fulfill my obligations. Now, some of those requests to the conscious mind, which is, so you got your unconscious mind, which is part of your body, and then you got the conscious mind, which is somehow outside of your mind. Neurologists have no idea why that is. It's just that we can think about what we're thinking about, distinguishing us from animals. So when we're in that state and the body is complaining and screaming, it's going to ask our mind to fulfill its desires or to change a trajectory. And that can happen, all the time. As I was saying, a good example of this, in other words, not a bad one, but a good example of good body screaming is when you have a pain. Like you have a pain in your foot, you can tell maybe you have a shooting pain at the bottom of your foot, and then your mind the body complains and says, hey, fix this shoe. And then the mind can take over and say, okay, conscientiously, what's the problem? Oh, feels like a rock. Let me undo my shoe, take out the rock. That's an example of a really healthy complaint, or maybe an alarm the body would set off. Or maybe don't do this. The body's like, I don't know, that's going to harm you if you jump off this cliff. Okay. That's built-in good information for the mind to listen to. And then other things, as we discussed, are, just sheer comfort. I want comfort. It's too warm. It's too hot. I'm hungry. I'm full. I just want to rest. I don't want to go anymore. It's constantly trying to redirect us to give us comfort. Now, one of the things you'll learn in 100X Life is if we follow all the desires of the body, good ones and bad ones, then we will be serving the body. You can either serve Jesus or you can just exclusively serve your body. It's going to be very difficult to serve Jesus and to create a mindset that is living by the Spirit, where you're seated in heavenly places, and living by the body and what the body directs. Now, the mind sometimes makes decisions, about what it's going to think about or what it's going to do, but it's usually caught in between what the body wants to do and what the spirit wants to do. That's where the mind has to make a decision. So learning to not give up is to think about, okay, who's complaining? Very obviously, oh, that's the body. Okay, mind. Then I will decide if we're going to respond to the body's complaint. You're just going to decide. As soon as you see them as two and not just you just flailing yourself around, and you see it as, okay, well, the body's saying this, here, I can see that, and the spirit might be saying this. Maybe you don't know what the spirit is saying, at least in relationship to what the body's complaining about, but you can just have this mindset, and this is what I'm asking you to do, of, okay, I see you, body, I see your request, and I'm going to think about it. So in the challenge, the challenge by design is positioning your body to be frustrated, to complain. That's strategic. We want you to experience your body's complaint so that your mind can exercise a muscle of saying, no, we are not going to do that, or we're not going to do that yet, or we're going to wait a month, or we're not going to eat anything until dinner, or we're not going to do that added sugar that you wanted to eat. So the body is going to be complaining, and then the mind will have the opportunity to say, no, we're not going to do that. And that is the magic of the program and the challenge. Simultaneously with that, you're going to be engaging with your spirit, hearing from God, and doing the practice of your spirit and mind connecting, because when you hear from God, that's when the mind and the spirit connect, because then you can conscientiously think about what you've received from God. And that could be an answer to a question. That could certainly be reading the words of Jesus, and then more importantly, just hearing directly from the Father. But whatever, we're going to connect the mind and the spirit together so that that relationship is going. So that's being exercised. So learning to not give up is all about, okay, this is good. I get an opportunity to say no to the body, and then I get an opportunity to say yes to the spirit. And yes, I'm going to journal. Yes, I'm going to read the words of Jesus and understand them. Yes, I'm going to put them into practice and integrate them into my life. So the interesting thing about this whole journey is that your Jesus following muscle, which, is a faith muscle, can be worked out, and it doesn't have to wait until you have a sin issue in order for you to make it stronger. The way that works is with every time you say no to the body and the mind says no, you're building the faith muscle, and that's the same exact muscle that says yes to Jesus. So alcohol, depending on your faith, not a sin. Eating added sugar, I think arguably not a sin. These things are not sinful situations where you're tempted, but you are being tempted to do something you've committed to not doing. And because you say no, you're flexing the same muscle that when you do get into a sin situation and you're going to have to say no to your body, you will have the strength for it. That's what this is all about. You're building the strength of following Jesus. It's a faith muscle, and we're going to be 62 days. We're going to grow so much muscle in 62 days. This is a jumpstart. This is a hyperdrive. This is going to really propel you and make this next year absolutely successful, way more successful, because you went through the challenge and you flexed the muscle of saying no to the body. Okay. Now, as we've talked about and we'll talk about with many interviews, people who have taken the program, the podcast, when we get to the book on January 2nd, is mainly going to be people who have taken the program before, and I'm interviewing them about their experience. And one of the things they inevitably say is that, hey, I felt like giving up. You get to the point where they're like, wow, 2 45-minute workouts, this is just exhausting, even with the Sunday rest, and they want to give up. And you want that feeling. As a matter of fact, it's kind of cool when you get that feeling, because that moment, that gym moment of building a faith muscle is going to be so opportunistic for you. It's going to be such an opportunity for you to really indulge muscle building. So don't be discouraged. Understand you're in the gym, you're building the muscle, and just keep telling that body, I'm sorry, we're going to do this. Maybe you reduce, like, let's just say if you're doing a strong cardio and maybe a muscle workout every day, maybe you fall back to, hey, I'm just going to do 2 walks, but keep going. And then sometimes you will miss a journaling, or you might miss something, or you might eat something, or you might not quite get to 100 ounces of water, or you forgot about the thankfulness exercise. Don't be discouraged, and don't join the enemy in beating yourself up. This is not, we don't want anyone to self-loathe or beat themselves up. We want people to stay in the gym. That's what we want, because in the gym, that's where muscle grows. And I'm talking about the faith muscle. So if you miss something, or you take a misstep in terms of the journey, don't think to yourself, kind of like 75 Hard says, okay, you're starting over, you can't do it. We're like, no, stay in the gym. Let's get back into the routine, practice self-forgiveness, and then just say, okay, well, that failure is part of the process. That failure is part of my gym experience. It would be a really crazy thought if I was working on a particular weight in the gym, let's say benching dumbbells, and my goal, which would be a higher dumbbell set, it would be really weird if I was on my journey to get to that, felt bad that I hadn't achieved it. Well, yeah, you can't feel bad about the journey and the pain in the journey and the inability to actually achieve or live the words of Jesus, or in this case, lift something in the gym. No, I don't get frustrated. I just know that every single time I'm in there practicing those reps, I'm getting stronger and closer to my goal. That's the way we want to feel. And then the other thing I'd encourage you to do, and this is the final thing, is make sure that you practice looking back and being thankful rather than looking forward and being fearful. Let me tell you what I mean by that. This is why we have you do a thankfulness meditation as you're going to sleep, because we want you to keep looking back. Look what you did. You'll get to day 7 and you can go, 7 days. I did 7 days of this challenge. Way to go. Thank you, Jesus, for giving me the opportunity to do this, to grow my relationship with you, Jesus, to know your words and to put them into practice. When you're looking back, it's thankfulness. When you're looking forward and going, oh my, that means that there are, doing the math in my head, 55 days left. No, then that creates the fear. So we don't look at the gap of what we have in the future. We look at the gain that we've already achieved. That's what we want to focus on and celebrate. And if you do that, that will help you to not give up and to hang in there in the challenge. Okay, people. Well, it's almost January 2nd, and we're going to do this. Tune into the podcast each day during the challenge. Make sure you're bringing somebody with you. Make sure you're challenging other people and say, hey, let's do this together. Make sure you've purchased 100X Life, the book, the daily practice, so that you have the journal prompts and ready to go. You can purchase the optional journal or just use your own journal. Either way, let's get ready. Make sure you're part of a group, and we will see you on the battlefield. If you believe in the 100X Life movement, please follow and invite a friend by sharing this podcast. The 100X Life movement can also be found on Instagram and Facebook, and also at 100xlife.com. The 100X Life podcast was produced by Jenna D of Jenna D Services with music by Ryan Ellis.
Lost, but you found me here, and your fire burns inside. It will not disappear, because the Spirit